Are you running a marathon? Oh my god, I could never run a marathon. You sure about that? My god, a marathon? That's like 42 kilometers, 26 miles. I don't understand those people.
That used to be me, but not anymore. Welcome to the Marathon Podcast. My name is Kristian Warwick, aka Warwick Runs on different platforms. Really happy to have you here. If you are new to the podcast, welcome. I hope that you'll like this episode. If you're a regular listener, welcome back. And I do think that you'll like this episode because today we're having the winner of the Norseman 2025 with us. So this is a bonus episode for those of you who are interested in Kristian Grue and how he has kind of made the Norseman his competition. On his fourth attempt, he managed to win. He's been on the podcast before. We talked to him earlier this spring about his goals, and obviously the Norseman was one of them. Before we talk to Kristian, I would like to ask you a favor, and that is, please give this podcast a review. If you like what you're hearing, give it a 5-star review. I would really appreciate that. It would really help me to grow the podcast. And if you could do me an additional favor, it would be to share this podcast with a friend or maybe even on your social media. So that would be highly appreciated. And today, during my conversation with Kristian, we're talking about how to get faster, amongst other things, but faster at running. And since this is the Marathon Podcast, I'm sure that a lot of you are kind of curious about how can you get faster as a marathoner? How do you improve your speed? Do you have to do a lot of speed work? According to Kristian, we don't really have to. And he'll tell us more about this in the episode. But I just wanted to share with you because I just got back from a run. And I haven't done a lot of speed work this spring. Maybe had 2 or 3 sessions in total. And the rest has been easy runs and threshold training, some steady pace runs. And all of a sudden today, I was able to run my threshold at a much higher or faster pace than I've ever been able to do before. So what felt like almost sprinting for a K this spring was threshold intensity today. Just wanted to share that because I think that a lot of us think that you have to have, and I'm sure it's helpful too, to have like a lot of speed training and to try to get faster. But according to Kristian and also based on my experiences lately, you don't really have to work on that. The higher pace will get there if you just do your training in the right way. You'll hear more about this in the episode about fueling, about how it is to actually do a Norseman. Kristian is answering a lot of the questions that he got on his own Instagram, and just a lot of useful and inspirational content, to be honest, in this podcast episode. Really appreciate Kristian coming over to have this chat, and I hope that you'll enjoy this second episode with Kristian Grue, the winner of the Norseman 2025. Welcome back to the Marathon Podcast, Kristian.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's been a good season so far. It didn't start as well as I hoped, but now it's starting to look like a good season.
Yeah, and something really big happened last weekend.
Yeah.
What happened?
Finally, I took the first step at Gästatoppen in this year's Norseman. It's been a goal of mine for a long time. It was the 4th time I did the race and finally managed to take the win.
Yeah, the winner of the Norseman 2025.
That sounds good.
Before we start talking more about all your preparations, and you might have to do a little bit of an introduction again, why don't you take us through the feeling of getting to that top of the mountain after a long day at the Norseman?
Yeah, it's a feeling I want everyone to get at some point in their lives, because that was insane. I was thinking it would be a lot of emotions at the top, but the adrenaline just took over completely. And when I crossed that finish line, I felt completely like unbeatable. I felt I could do the race all over again. And yeah, it was a strange and really great feeling.
And 4 times of trying. This was your fourth try on or attempt on winning, I guess, like your fourth time doing it. What do you feel like that makes it taste even better when you tried so many times?
Yeah, I think so. And especially being quite close a few of the times. Norseman was my first full distance race back in 2019. Didn't manage to race in 2020 since it was Corona. 21 and 22, I got second. And then I didn't race the last 2 years, but I got the chance of being support for Jürgen, my friend, last year. And that made me want to come back this year and try it again.
And you were here on the podcast earlier. You were the first guest on, and then you were obviously talking a lot about your training and the preparations you have in general as a triathlete. But heading into something like the Norseman, what do you have to do different than, say, a normal competition?
For me, racing full distance races and mostly Ironman races, the racing time is mostly a bit shorter than racing Norseman, because Norseman has a lot of elevation both on the bike and on the run. So preparing for a longer day, being able to digest all the nutrition for close to 10 hours, that's something I've been training for, and also all the elevation on the bike and on the run. I haven't done too many specific workouts for the run, but I've had a few uphill runs, and it's something different to run uphill at 10 degrees after 8-9 hours of racing. And also the biking, being able to push the power in the uphills. And also there's a lot of fast sections in the race. So being able to stay aero in the TT bars, that's important. So the main goal this season was Norseman as one of them, but also qualifying and do well in the World Champs in Nice. And the bike course is quite similar, so the training has been much the same for both Norseman and Nice. But the run at Norseman is a lot longer, both in time and higher in elevation.
Because I guess something that we need to establish here is that, like, what the Norseman actually is. Obviously, it's an Ironman, but you're better than me to explain what that actually is.
Yeah, Norseman is a full distance. It's the longest distance we have in triathlon. 3.8 kilometers of swimming, 180 k's of riding, biking, and a marathon on the run to finish it off. And what's special with Norseman is that the water is usually a bit colder. This year it was good, but normally we can have as low as 12 to 13 degrees. I think we had around 16 degrees this year. So for a lot of people, it's still quite cold. And on the bike, it's around 3,000 meters of elevation. And it's also a race that goes from A to B. Normally in Ironman racing, it's loops both on the bike and the run. And then you finish off the marathon with not a flat, but flat-ish run for the first 25K. And then you have 1,600 meters of elevation on the last 17K. And the last 45K is really rocky, going up to Gassatoppen. So it's a long and hard day, and normally it's quite brutal conditions at the top and points in the race.
And usually you will see the athletes kind of running at the end of a competition like this. But with this, it's like it's not even possible to run that last bit of the course, is it?
Yeah, it's quite steep at some points at the last part, and it's also so rocky that you need to just watch yourself so you don't fall and stumble. So it's a quite challenging finish, but I would say it's no finish line in the world that can compare to getting up to Gassatoppen. So it's a nice race.
I want to hear more about your training, and you also had a poll, or you asked your followers on Instagram the other day a lot of questions, and we have some of those. But before we head into those, I would love to hear how you experienced the race itself, like from getting up in the morning. I know that you had to get up pretty early until finishing first up there.
Yeah. Yeah, that's also something that's special with Norseman. The start is 5 a.m. in the morning, and usually we have bike check-in the day before the race and start a bit later. But at Norseman, you have bike check-in in the morning from 3 a.m. So on the Saturday, I was waking up at 2 a.m., having breakfast, getting down to the start. We were living at a cabin around 25 minutes drive from the start, going down to check in the bike, and then we have this ferry that takes us 3.8 kilometers out in the fjord, where we stay from 4 a.m. until we jump at around 4:50. And I was feeling really focused. I remember sitting on the ferry in one of the corners, just doing my warm-up routine, listening to music, and not talking to many people, just staying focused about what I was going to do. And I had a good vibe when I woke up. I actually had a nightmare that day, waking up earlier. And in that nightmare, it was Monday, and I had became second again. So when I woke up from that, I remember smiling because I knew I was able to do something about it. But back to the ferry, when we were jumping, I was quite calm. I was pleased and happy that it was quite far to the start line. Normally, the ferry varies a bit how close to the shore they can come, and we had between 400 and 500 meters to swim to the start line. So I got a proper warm up in the water as well. And when the horn went off at the boat and the start went 5:05 in the morning, my focus was to go out hard and fast and try to get a gap early on the swim. And I saw that there were people close to shore that also had a good start. So I was trying to swim hard in the start just so that no one could get on my feet and benefit from the draft on the swim. Didn't look back, was just trying to settle down in a comfortable pace. I didn't feel super great on the swim. Whenever I was trying to push the pace and push the cadence on the swim, I felt back down to a bit slower cadence than I wanted. But I managed to get close to 2 minutes to the second person out of the water. And I had a really good transition together with my support. Getting through transition and out on the bike, I felt quite good for the first 1.5 hour going up to Diranut.
Do you have control, or do you feel like you have control of everything? Are they able to communicate to you, your team, communicate where you're at, where the other swimmers or the other athletes are at that point when you're transition?
Yeah, that's something special with Norseman, since you have support team that can stop out in the course and give you splits and give you nutrition. But the first point is at a place called Garn, and that's around 45 minutes into the bike ride. So that's the first time I got splits down to the others. And I heard that I had around 3 minutes already there. So I felt comfortable. Just stick to the plan, recording according to the power we were planning to push and nutrition as well. But when I got to Diranut at around 1.5 hour, I didn't feel great at all. I was trying to push and just staying aero, but my quads were feeling like tight and not fresh. So my plan was to push quite steady and hard going down to Geilo, but I had to settle with 15 watts lower than the plan. And I was a bit curious on how the rest of the day would gonna be. But when I heard that I still managed to take some time on the gas behind, I knew that I was doing well, trying to focus on cutting the corners, staying aero, taking advantage of the higher paces. So when I got to Geilo, I told my support that I needed to adjust the plan and ride a bit slower than we wanted. And after the first hill after Geilo, started to feel better again. I managed to push the pace quite well in the next 2 hills. And when we got to the last hill and the second longest hill up Imingfjell, I told my support that this is it now. We're gonna push the pedal hard from here on and into the run, just to see if we can break the others, put 2 or 3 minutes into them and make sure that they don't feel like they have a chance at all.
How important is that aspect of it? Like in terms of, like you said, almost communicate to your competition, because they're also getting, I guess, like communication from their team about how close they are to you. How important is it for you to kind of just tell them that, hey, I'm feeling good, I have a good day, I
think that's really important. Of course, you need to stay within your limits, because if you ride too hard on the bike, you're definitely gonna pay for it on the run. But pushing hard and staying within my limits, I think that if you're able to take some time, like all the way throughout the course on your competitors, eventually they will feel like, okay, I'm never gaining time back. I'm just losing and losing and losing, and it's easier for them to give up. And I know that the guys behind, they will always get splits, both back to the guys behind them, but also up to the front. So knowing that I took time in the last hill and also pushing hard in the downhill, that was both a confident for me, because I had a bigger gap, but I also knew that they were going to struggle with the feedback they got from their supporters. But I got a bit too eager, I think, on the last downhill, trying to push to get below 5 hours. But I felt great out on the run, but because the day is so long, going a bit hard on the bike, you burn matches and you burn too much carbohydrates that you never will be able to refill enough. So I felt good for the first 20k on the run, just sticking to the plan, doing the nutrition super easy, pacing myself in the small uphills and downhills. But after around 23k, I suddenly started to feel super bad. The head was foggy and legs were jelly, and I've actually never felt that bad in a full distance race before. So I had to walk some parts going into the last hill.
Do you know what that was?
Not 100% sure, but I think it's a combination of a quite high dose of caffeine while being a bit too dehydrated. It was a bit warmer than we expected, and that the weather forecast was telling. and I averaged around 600 milliliters of fluid an hour and should have had a liter. So I started to feel better when we got a bit higher up. The temperature was dropping and I managed to get some more fluid in. So most likely it was a combination of that and the caffeine.
And how long did that last for? Like, how long did it take you? Because since you've managed to finish the way you did, I assume that your body kind of recovered somehow, or you were back to. How long did it last? This dizziness and that feeling.
Yeah, that's the funny part with the full distance, because you will get some down periods that can strike quite hard. But if you just manage to push through, you will always get back up and feel good again. And this period, it started around K22, 23. And around the first corner in Zombie Hill, I was starting to feel a bit better. So maybe around 20 to 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And we were just trying to focus on the things we were able to do something about. Like I was trying to push and trying to run, but my legs just they didn't manage. So my coach and support, he said like, okay, we need to make a plan now. Are you able to run for 1 minute and then walk for 10 seconds? So we tried that, but I couldn't run for a minute. So we said like, okay, let's try to run 45 seconds and then walk 15 seconds and then do that, and focusing on the time and the cadence and everything else than just the pain. And quickly I started to run 45 seconds, walk 15, and then I was able to run for a minute and walk 15. And then suddenly I was starting to feel better and was able to run for maybe like 3-4 minutes between every walk stops. And we were focusing about saying that it was okay to walk, but whenever I was walking, I had to walk like I meant it, like I wanted it.
Yeah.
Not like walking like I've given up, but taking longer steps in the hill. And when we saw that the pace was quite good whenever I was running, we knew that the body wasn't empty. So I could just try to refocus and push.
But like, so mentally you're in the lead for the whole race, and at this point of the race you start struggling to run for even a minute, and you have half the marathon distance left, and you know that there's going to be a lot of uphill climbs there, and knowing how much you wanted this, what goes through your head at this point?
That's the crazy part, because some might think that with the lead I had at that point, I could have just continued walking or trying to run, and I think I had around 20 minutes at that point. But if you start to walk and if you have to stop as well, the time goes really fast. And as soon as the guys behind start to catch up and see that the gap is decreasing, they will get more motivated than ever and they will push harder. So at one point in the race, I was actually not sure if I was going to make it to the top, because I was feeling so dizzy and foggy, and the legs were feeling just so jelly, and I really struggled to push. But somehow we managed to keep the body moving all the time. So I knew that as long as I just keep going, even though it goes slower than planned, that means the other guys needs to move even faster to be able to catch up. So I think, of course, it's easier to get through a period like this when you're in the lead with a big gap. But it's still it's a mental battle. You need to push through to keep going.
Because what do you think in terms of your, call it, mental abilities? What is it that what made you actually get through that? Because I think that a lot of people would have stopped, like even if they were in the lead, because you don't recognize your own body, you don't recognize the symptoms, and you might even get scared. Like, what goes through your head in that way where you're actually able to turn it around?
I think I for sure benefit from have been in the same situation before. I haven't felt that bad before, but I've had the down periods and I've struggled in races before. And I know that if you just keep going and manage to get through it, you will feel better eventually. Uh, it's like with everything in life, eventually it will be better. Sometimes it takes longer time, but I know that if I'm able to focus on things that doesn't have anything to do with the pain, you will get through it faster. And I think that's easier during Norseman than in other races because, especially from Zombie Hill, you have your support running with you. And my coach running with me, he is really good at focusing on the right things, focusing on the cadence on the run, focusing on the next corner, the next step, instead of like, okay, this is painful. It's still 2 hours to go. Because if you focus on those things, I think the down period will last even longer.
And then you get through this, and the last part, you did mention it in the beginning of like that feeling, but you do get to the top, and you're able to win. Like so those last, what is it, last 15 kilometers?
Yeah,
16.
approximately.
Yeah. How did your body feel at that point?
Getting into Zombie Hill was the worst part, but after the second corner, so around 1.5K into the hill, I started to feel better and better and better, and was actually feeling really well going into the last 10Ks of the run. And when we saw the pace on the flat part at around 35K, I knew that no one was going to run faster at that point. So then I got this mental boost again and felt really good. So, and when we got to the last rocky part, I knew that that section would take around everything from 40 to 50 minutes. And with a 30-minute lead or something around there, I knew that I would have to stumble and break something for anyone to take it. So going into the last part, I felt really good and confident, and I told my team, okay, let's push for the first 30 minutes of this rocky section, and then try to enjoy the last 15 minutes. And we were able to do that.
So you are the winner of the Norseman 2025, and some of your followers asked you questions. And one of the, maybe at least from my, when I look at it, one of the most interesting questions is, do you think it's possible to do good national championships with a job on the side, a full-time job on the side? And I'm just going to leave you to answer that question.
I think it's possible for sure. I have a full-time job now, combining that with training, and it's possible. Of course, it's better to be a full-time athlete, but when you need to have a full-time work to make a living, you need to prioritize harder. And I think it all comes down to what you want to achieve. And if you want to achieve great things in sport while having a full-time job, you need to prioritize after that. And that means you can't do like everything else. I'm not out partying every weekend. I'm not social every day. I wake up early. I do my training sessions before work. I go to work, do what I need to there, and then I get back to the second session of the day. And I have to prioritize well with both sleep, nutrition, how much and how hard I train because of the total load. So it's a balance, but for sure it's possible.
And for me, what I've seen now that I have a full-time job myself, obviously, and I'm just training for marathons, and I'm usually not even having doubles, so I have one training a day. And still, sometimes in the morning, it's really hard to get out. And if I have to go out, working before and have a run in the afternoon, it's really hard to get out of the door. Do you also struggle with the same things? Like, is it sometimes really hard to get out there, or is it easy for you?
Of course, I think everyone, even the top athletes that doesn't go to a regular work in the day, they will struggle with the same. But I think at those moments, it's extremely important to have a clear goal that you can remind yourself of. And it's like when I sit up at the evening watching television, I try to remind myself, is this worth it? Getting up in the morning and being sleeping and tired because I watched this television show for 30 minutes more. And if the answer is no, then you have your sign. And when you wake up in the morning, for sure, sometimes it's easier to just let the alarm ring and sleep for an hour more if you're able. But if you just ask yourself what's the reason your alarm is ringing at the first point, then I think it's easier to get up and do the job.
Another question that came in was about fueling. And so for this podcast, obviously named the Marathon Podcast, a lot of people are obsessed with the fueling part of it. But after all, it's not as many hours as an Ironman is. And there are so many aspects to this that I think is very interesting because for a marathon runner, for instance, you might not eat as much. Like you will have maybe more gels and energy or like sports nutrition the day before to make it easier on your stomach the day after, and you will have some gels throughout the race. But for something like this, are you eating normally the day before, and how do you fuel throughout the race, and what is it that you're fueling with?
That's a good question. I am a true believer of fueling hard and well during races, and studies shows that it's possible to digest a lot more carbohydrates than we believed in a few years ago. But it's something you need to train in the same way as you train running for running a marathon. You do the long runs, you do the intervals, and you also need to do the specific training for nutrition as well. And as you say, the marathon isn't as long as the triathlon race, but the intensity is usually higher. So you burn more carbohydrates earlier in the race than you would do in a 10-hour race. And you only have like carbohydrates available for an hour of high intensity. So if you're running a marathon in 2 hours, then you need to fuel for that last hour. And also, I like to think of it as a bigger picture than just that single race, because studies are showing that if you ingest high amount of carbohydrates, you will recover faster, you will have less muscle damage. So in Norseman, that was important for me because I have another race coming up 6 weeks later, and knowing that if I was fueling well during that race, I would recover faster, and being able to train more earlier after the race. And I think unless you're doing a marathon or a race as a one time, one show, it's different. But if you're doing it because you want to improve and you want to do more races and do better, I think it's important to fuel well during the race as well.
And I think that a lot of people, especially if people come from running, they will have experienced that their stomach gets upset or that things are not working out the way they want to. And I assume that although you're competing for like for an Ironman, like what was your time?
9:45.
9:45. So you're almost 10 hours, or almost 10 hours of competing. And I guess you don't really have time to take those bathroom breaks. So how do you solve that part of making sure that your stomach is okay throughout the whole day? And is it okay throughout the whole day?
Yeah, normally it is. But I do some specific things to make sure that it will be okay. And that's for the last at least 48 hours, but up to 72 hours. I eat less fiber. I eat less proteins and less fat. Just carbohydrates that's easy to digest. So the stomach will be not empty, but your glycogen stores will be full.
What kind of things could that be for you? Like, what is it?
It's everything from cinnamon buns to white bread to rice, pasta. I tend to go for pizza pre-race, and just things with as little fiber as possible. My pre-race meal is normally white bread or cornflakes in the morning. So it's super easy to digest for the stomach. And as you say, it's more stress for the stomach on the run than it's on the bike. So it's easier to take on more carbohydrates during the bike leg, also because the heart rate is normally lower. But it's even more important to train the stomach to handle the carbohydrates on the run. So for me, prior to the race, it's more important to do the specific nutrition during the running sessions than on the bike sessions.
And what is it that you're fueling with throughout the race?
From around 1 to 2 hours before the race in the morning and throughout the whole race, I go with gels and sports drink from Fuel of Norway. Just to keep it simple and easy to digest, I take on only fluid from the start.
So one of the questions also had to do with how many gels you had or how you did your nutrition. And you talked a little bit about it, but in terms of the very specifics, can you take us through how much you ate or what your nutrition was like?
Yeah. During the race, I averaged around 145 grams per hour during the bike and 120 grams per hour on the run. At the ferry before the start, I had one satch of race fuel in a 500 milliliter bottle and one fuel loaded gel. So that's 110 grams per hour or grams of carbohydrates. And from the bike, from the T1 to T2 on the bike leg, I was taking 5 gels from Fuel of Norway per hour, averaging around 900 to 1,000 milliliters of fluid per hour. And on the run, I was taking on 3 fuel-loaded gels per hour, averaging 120 grams on the run and around 600 milliliters of water for the first 25 Ks. That's the flat part of Norseman. And when we got into Zombie Hill, when the intensity, well, not the intensity, but the pace is lower, we tried to mix things up a bit with Red Bull, candy, just everything that's sugar and easy to get in after 8 hours of racing.
For you, when you are like before the start of something like this, because I mentioned it before. I think I talked to you about it too, but I always felt like, or when I was to do my first marathon, for instance, I thought that I would be so tired from the very first kilometer, and then you realize that this is a longer distance. It's not a 10K, it's not a 5K. When you are competing, or so say when you're halfway through the race, and you did mention that you felt that you didn't have the best day, but in terms of tiredness, like exhaustion, how is how does your body feel when you say when you're 3 or 4 hours into the race?
I would say like that early in the race, I feel in control. My heart rate is controlled. The power I'm pushing on the bike is well within my limits. And I'm able to push higher power and higher intensity. And I want to push higher, but I know that the race is long. So I'm trying to stay within the zones and limits that I know I'm able to keep for everything from 8 to 10 hours. And for that, you need to do either races or longer sessions to be able to find your limits. But it's also I do a lot of lab testing just to see at what intensity I'm burning a higher percentage of carbohydrates than fat. And when you're racing for almost 10 hours, you want to use as little carbohydrates as possible for as long as possible. So it's a lot of just testing and training to find your limits for the distance you're gonna race.
So for most of the race, if you were to, like, if we set a scale from 1 to 10, where are you at in terms of pain and yeah?
It's hard to say, around 3 to 4 maybe.
Yeah.
My heart rate can be quite high. It's like on the bike, I normally average around 15 heartbeats lower than my threshold.
Mm-hmm.
And on the run, normally 10 to 15 heartbeats lower. So quite high, but it also depends on your upper roof, as I like to call it, your VO2 max and your threshold. It's like if your threshold and your VO2 max is low, it's hard to push really high intensity. So I think for sure it's important to train on all the aspects and all the intensity zones, even though if you're racing for 10 hours, it's important to be able to have a high VO2 max as well.
So in some ways, you're like, if you look at in the moment of the competition, like here and now, kind of, then you're just using a little a fracture of your capacity, but because you have that capacity, you're able to do that over such a long time, and that is kind of what is needed to win something like a Norseman.
Yeah. I would say if I were to go out and do the intensity I keep in an Ironman race for 1 hour, I would feel not really tired after that session. But that's because it's like it's not about pushing the intensity on the Ironman races. It's more about staying within yourself, because you will eventually always get tired, especially muscularly. but it's about finding those limits in your training and trying to push those limits as far as possible.
And obviously, the Norseman is kind of a result of not what you've done the last few weeks or months or even the last couple of years. It's kind of a result of everything that you've done throughout your whole life, I guess, as an athlete. And one of the questions was, you've been training for your whole life. What did it look like when you started your training back in the days?
That's funny because I started doing sports seriously when I was 16 years old. So still that's quite late. A lot of people, they do a lot of different sports when they're very young. I started to play football a couple of times during the week when I was 12. And then I started doing biathlon at 15, 16 years old. And then started to train seriously when I was 16. And back then I was this kid enjoying video games, watching TV, not really super social, but I went to school. I was playing with some friends afterwards. Not much training, but I started to like the suffering and the hard sessions and all the work when I was around 16, 17 years old and started to do biathlon. And from there on, it's been a journey that I've enjoyed all the way. And just the improvement that you make. It's not all about the victories, but about the journey and seeing that you take these little steps. That's what I like about it.
And obviously, you have people like me who are inspired by you, and I might want to do an Ironman or maybe even the Norseman at some point. But there might also be some kids out there who now, because of you, have noticed Ironmans or triathlon, and maybe they dream about doing a Norseman at some point. What would you say to them in terms of their training? How should they, like, if there's a 10-year-old out there or a parent of a 10-year-old, what would your advice be in terms of the training?
Find something you like. For sure, you won't like every session. You will have days where you feel tired. You will have days where you're not motivated, and days where the weather is shit, so you don't want to go out. But if you find something you like to do and you enjoy, and you're able to do together with other people as well, I think that's the most important thing, to be able to do it over time. And there's nothing more important than consistency if you want to reach a higher level, because you can have great sessions, but there's not one single session that will beat continuously training over time.
Thanks. And then one of the questions, and it's probably an easier or shorter answer to, and that is, what was the power output during the race? And I assume that we're now talking about just the bike. So what was your average wattage?
Yeah, my average was 289, if I'm right, and the normalized power was 303. So it wasn't the hardest ride, and it wasn't a PB power for that distance, but it was according to how I felt on the bike throughout the day. It was quite good, and it was well enough to be able to run fast off the bike as well. And that's the most important for me, to be able to ride fast without using too much energy, so that I'm able to run fast off the bike as well.
And just for people to know, like, how heavy are you in kilos, just so they know?
77 kilos.
And then there's another question, and that is, have you never considered just drinking beers and playing golf?
That's a good question. I've actually tried golf sometimes, and the problem is that you're standing so still, and I need to move. But drinking beers, I'll for sure do after the season.
Personally, I think that I haven't played that much golf, but I think that I would be a little bored. And the next question is if you were bored at all during the whole race, like, because a lot of hours, do you
Yeah.
get bored?
Of course, heading into the race, I knew that there were a lot of strong guys. Some of them didn't have their best day, and that was the reason they weren't up there. But it's a lot more fun when you have people around you pushing the pace and making it a real and hard race. So at some point, I was screaming to my support that you guys need to stop more often because this is quite boring in the front. No people around me, and yeah. But it's again, it's more about focusing on the small things that will make you go faster instead of how fun this is. So yeah.
Because I guess that is also something that is important for the listeners to know that with a lot of sports events, you will have a lot of spectators and stuff like that. But you, like you said, it's point to point, and it's quite a distance, and it's not possible to have spectators all the way. But do you have a lot of people watching you and cheering you on along the route?
Yeah, this year was actually the most crowded year I've been at Norseman. I saw a lot of people early on at close to Dyranud, and also staying in all the hills after Geilo. And as you say, normally at the races and other sports, you have people standing around the whole course. So when I came to a place where people were standing and cheering, I got a bit more excited and a bit more happy. So I think I was enjoying that even more than you do when you have people cheering on the whole course.
Another question is, it's more about the specifics of your training, and that was, did you prepare a lot with hills on the bike, intervals in the hills?
On the bike, I did, and that was the plan throughout the whole season. Ironman Lanzarote was my first attempt to try to qualify for the Worlds, and that's a really hilly course on the bike. Ironman Austria is also quite hilly with 1600 meters of elevation. Norseman is really hilly, and the Ironman World Champs in Nice is also quite hilly on the bike. So throughout the whole year, I've been doing a lot of uphill intervals on the bike, preparing as good as possible for those courses.
You did already mention about the carbs, but I'm just gonna ask the specific question here. How many carbs per hour did you take?
On the bike or from T1? In T1, I took one gel, and from there on, and for the next 5 hours on the bike, I was averaging 145 grams per hour. And on the run, we did it super simple with one squeeze bottles with 30 grams of carb every 15 minutes. So 120 grams per hour on the run.
And then there's a more trivia one, I guess. What would be your favorite song going into T2?
Ooh, that's a good question. I have this go-to song that I tend to listen to before every race now, and that's a song called "I Need Faith." And for some reason, it just calms me down. and I get a good vibe. Maybe that's because I started to listen to it right before Ironman Klagenfurt, which was one of my better races this year and where I qualified for the World Champs. So I would say I need faith.
Cool. And then with Ironmans or triathlon in general, there's the gear part is a bit more. It's harder with the gear than just with running or just with swimming. So someone's asking here about your bike, and that is like what the weight was of your bike, and if you're doing anything specific to make it lighter, because there are a lot of hills, Norseman.
My bike was weighing 10.2 kilos, and that's with computer and pedals, but without the fluid. And what I did to bring as little weight as possible in the hills was just planning the nutrition according to the hills. I tried to carry as little nutrition and fluid as possible going into the hills, and I never had more than 750 milliliters of fluid on the bike, instead of up to 2-3 liters that we can have in normal Ironman races. So that was the specific things I did for the weight.
Best advice to stay free of injuries or getting sick?
Consistency, but consistency and variety. Train different movements, like to do like swimming, biking, running, different sports, but also train in different zones. It's like you can't go hard all the time. You can't run long sessions every day. You need a variety of everything.
And I guess this is a good time to kind of ask the question again we did in the last episode with you, where we're talking about the intensity and how much of your training is at low intensity and what is a threshold and higher intensity. And also, I remember you answering the question of like how many times in a training block you're going all out and you're so tired that you don't know what to do.
Yeah. It's funny because now that I'm working full time, I'm not able to do 40 hours training weeks every week. Just simple as because the day doesn't have that many hours. So instead of doing like 40 hours at lower intensity, I'm trying to do a bit more higher intensity because I'm not doing more than 20 to 22 hours a week. But this is also something that you need to train up for a longer period of time. If you're not used to train, you can't go out and train 20 hours of high intensity every week. But for me, that's been consistent with training for 15 years now. I can tolerate the quite high volume of intensity. So, yeah.
And I also do know, because we talked about this before, that you're the kind of athlete that can actually handle that, and that's maybe more unique in some ways that a lot of athletes, especially in your sport, that they will have more low intensity. If you say you didn't have to go to work every day and you were able to have those 40-hour training weeks, do you think that it would have looked differently? Do you think that the different like percentages of the easy compared to the hard trainings would have looked differently then?
I think I would have had even more low intensity training. If you see the whole training week as a full bottle of water with intensity and volume as two different parts, I would have maybe taken the intensity down with say 20% and upping the volume a bit. But but that's also because it's more specific to the races I'm doing. If you're doing 5 to 10k road running races, you might not need to train 30 hours or 250 k's of running a week, but it's more important with intensity. But I also think that when we're talking about the running, that's the most critical part of triathlon, because you can up the volume and intensity quite fast on both the swim and the bike in triathlon, because it's not that big of a risk for injuries. But when it comes to the run, I have this golden rule that I never up the volume more than 10% every week. So if I've had 2 weeks of illness and was running 100 k's a week before that, I can't just go straight back to 100 k's. Then I need to look at the average for the last weeks and up it slowly and progressively. And I never up both the volume and the intensity at the same time. If I want to do more intensity on the run, I can't increase the volume as well. So just trying to stay a bit extra safe to be able to have the continuously training on the run and not get injured and have weeks without running.
And when you're talking about intensity, because I remember we talked about that the last time too, that a lot of people might misunderstand when you say I have more high intensity workouts, that it doesn't necessarily mean that it's kind of like all out. What is high intensity workouts for you, or what do they look like?
First of all, I would say that every intensity workout that I do, they are progressively throughout the session. I always run my fastest splits on the last interval. And of course, that's because I know my intensity zones. I know my times on the different variation. So for example, if I'm doing the classic 10 times 1000 meters, I know that I can go out and run 300 k on the first lap, but then I wouldn't run progressively. So I like to see it as instead of like running faster and harder from the start, I tend to progress through the session. And if I'm starting a bit too slow for the shape I have that day, I do 1 rep more instead. So, and as I tell a lot of the athletes that I'm coaching, when you're done with the last interval, you should be able to do at least 1 more rep at the same pace. And I hear a lot of people that go like all out on their last rep. And that increases the risk of getting injured, and it increases the recovery time a lot. So I want to be able to run as close to my specific race pace as possible, and do as much as possible of that pace. So then I can't go out and run like all out intervals every second or third day.
And then you did talk about how you have to be careful upping your mileage too quickly on the running. I'm curious about when it comes to the pace and intensity for on say like an easy run, because my impression is that on the bike, as you improve, you can easily push more, and you can have like you can go faster, but it's still at the same intensity if you've improved, right? Like as long as you have the same heart rate or the same lactate, then the power can be higher. But with running, I feel like the mechanical load might be higher or more if you run faster. What is your take on that? Do you run faster on your easy runs as you get in better shape, or do you always have the same pace for your easy runs?
It varies a lot, I would say. But I take it more by day and by feel. For example, taking me as an example now, my threshold pace for 1K reps would be around, between 310 and 315 per K. My target marathon pace would be around 320. My target Ironman pace around 345. And my easy runs would be everything from 415 to say 515 per K, depending on how I'm feeling that day and the terrain I'm running in. So for example, I can go out, I can feel super great, run 415, but some days I can feel a bit tired, maybe averaging around 445. So like if I'm running a threshold, I have this quite small gap, knowing that if I'm struggling to keep 320 pace, I know that I'm really tired, and that there might be no point of doing that interval session. And I also know that if I'm running a 3:05, I'm running too fast and I won't be able to keep that for as long as planned. But on the easy runs, the gap is even bigger, and it's more based on how I feel that day and the heart rate as well. But I think on the easy run, it's better to keep them a bit too easy than a bit too fast, especially with the injury part.
Yeah, because that was gonna be my next question. I feel like you do hear a lot, like if you start, for me, for instance, start running a bit more, and then I hear people saying, "Oh, but I can't run with you anymore because you're so fast," right? First of all, I'm not that fast, but regardless, I feel like that might be something that people misunderstand a little bit, that on the easy runs, it might be possible to still run with you. So like say you're, if it's like a friend or family member who wants to go on a run with you, are you then kind of like allowing yourself to be like, okay, today it's okay to have a 520 average because then I have someone to run with? Or will you say, no, I have to run faster?
To some point, it's like if when I'm going out on easy runs myself, normally they tend to end between 4:15 and 4:45, for example. But I can run 5:15, I can run 5:30, but if we're talking like 6:30 pace per K, then it's starting to get so slow that I would probably not even be in zone 1. So the training benefit from the session will be really low. So I think, of course, you can go easy on the easy runs, but if you go too easy, you need to look at what's the point, or not what's the point, but what do you want to get out of the session.
Yeah. So, but that means that even the winner of the Norseman can have a pace that is above 5 every now and then.
Yes.
It's not, yeah.
Yeah.
That's good to know. There is one question, and that is, how can I win Norseman next year?
Then you need to be in good shape already and train well and do smart decisions the next 360 days.
Yeah. I guess an easier question to, or not necessarily an easier question to answer, but a more specific question is, do you have any advice on doing a 2:30 marathon?
It really depends on the level you're at when you want to achieve sub 30. But I would say what's most important is staying injury free and consistent with the running. for marathon, the long run is important, but if you're far off the goal of 2:30 now, I would say that intensity is just as important. And it also depends on when. Like if you want to run a 2:30 in 2 weeks, I wouldn't do like heaps of interval sessions. I would do more specific work. But if you want to run a 2:30 marathon in a year, you can prioritize higher intensity before a more specific block closer. But combining sessions at specific pace for 2:30 marathon with higher intensity and shorter intervals, and also easier long runs, I think that's the most important.
And I assume that because you said that your threshold pace now is 3:10 to 3:15 ish. I assume that it hasn't always been that. And how do you kind of get to that faster pace for your threshold or for your marathon? If you're doing a lot of, like you said, long runs and stuff, it's easy that I think that it's easy to think that you're not really getting faster. Do you have to have speed workouts to get faster, or is that just a consequence of all the training?
I don't think you have to do a lot of speed workouts to up your threshold pace, but you need to have a lot of session at the specific intensity. And it doesn't sound like a good answer, but if you do enough training at the right intensity, the pace will come along eventually. It's funny because people, of course, when you're at a higher level, it's harder to take the next step. It's easier to see higher progression when you're at a lower level. But if you're training enough around the right intensity, your speed will just come along eventually. It can be a month or a year, but suddenly you will just see the pace dropping and you will get faster. But you need to have continuously training over time and enough training at the intensity you want to be better at.
Yeah, I like hearing that because I've had a couple of guests on the podcast. Some people saying that you need to have a lot of speed workouts to get faster or to get to that pace that you want for the marathon. And then I've had some who's just been doing they've only been doing steady runs. And then all of a sudden, when they do a 10K race, they're faster than they've ever been. And they've never been able to hit that pace ever before, but they're just faster, probably because they've been hitting the intensities right then, like you said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's the most important, but especially important for staying injury free. And if you're able to stay injury free, you will eventually be better because you will have more training and more time to develop. So yeah, that's what I would focus on.
We're getting closer to the end here, but in terms of your training block before, say, the Norseman or any of the Ironman competitions, what does that normally look like? Do you have do all the weeks look the same, or do you have a lot of different weeks? Do you have weeks where you're resting more, lower intensity, higher intensity? What does it really look like?
I like to closer to race. I like to build the intensity and volume before I drop and prepare for the race for the last 2 weeks. So going into Norseman, I had 4 weeks building both intensity and volume. But when the volume got higher, the intensity got more closer to race specific intensity. So for example, I could go from 25 hours a week with a lot of threshold and up that to 30 hours a week with a bit less threshold but more race pace intensity. before I go. I keep the amount of sessions like on the last 2 weeks, but I dropped the volume and I dropped the amount of intensity sessions.
Ska vi checka. And then if like I told you, I feel inspired by you now, and I feel like obviously I'm working on the running. I'm working on, or I've been doing a lot of biking before, and I feel like that's a lot. A lot of people have that. Like if they approach an Ironman or a triathlon, they have done some cycling or running before, but the swimming is maybe the most intimidating part. What is it that people should do, or what should I do if I want to start approaching the swimming? What would be the first step?
Jumping into it, I would say. I see that people are scared of the swimming part because they haven't been swimming, and of the swimming is for sure the most technical part of the triathlon, but it's really nothing to be scared about. So just start with your first swim session. Try to swim with other people. Try to get feedback on your technique. Yeah, and eventually, when you start getting more confident in water, make sure you never go to a swimming session without at least one focus point on the technique. Because if you go to a swimming session and you don't focus on your technique, there's no point of doing that session. It's not like the run where you can just go out for 30 minutes easy run and that's it. You need to focus on your technique to not make the swim worse.
And do you take on athletes if they want to be coached by you?
Yeah, for now I have a few spots available, but when I'm working full time as well, I'm not taking on too many athletes because I want to be able to follow them and feel like I have enough time to make them better athletes, and that's why I'm only taking on a few more.
Okay, so you are now 5 or 6 weeks away from the World Championships in Nice.
5 weeks.
5 weeks.
Yeah.
What is your goal for the World Championships?
I would be super happy with a top 15 in Nice. My ranking isn't that well. I know that the level of competition there will be a lot higher in both both Norseman and Klagenfurt where I qualified. But I really believe that if I manage to have a perfect day, I should be able to get a top 15 there.
Do you feel more pressure now that you are the Norseman?
Not really. I'm not one of the top contenders in the world, but I believe I have one of the stronger runs after a hard bike. And I think that it's a course where a lot of people will ride a bit too hard. So I think it's a course where you might be able to be quite far behind after the bike. And if you pace yourself right, you can come far up in the end if you have a good run.
But now going forward, and I know that you kind of want to, I guess, go full time and maybe work a little bit less so you have more time for training. What do you think that, like, in terms of partnering up with people, do you see that there are any possibilities for you going forward to have someone to work with, or what is your goal for on that part?
For sure, I hope to find some sponsors that want to take a shot at me and that believe I can progress even more and do even better, and that things at a good enough level now to be competitive. And for sure, it would be ideal to work less. And the dream is to be able to live of this sport. But I still think that I would need to do some work on the side, mostly for the mental part of it, because I know that doing triathlon full time and nothing else, it's easy to focus a bit too much on everything and not get the rest and the other focus that I feel like I need. So I feel like it's a balance. I'm balancing quite well now, but for sure I think I would be even better in triathlon if I were to work a bit less and have more time for resting and also training a bit more.
You sound like the perfect athlete to sponsor, because then you can actually offer something more than just having whatever logo they have on. You can actually do some work for them, because that would benefit you as an athlete too.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. I wish that I could sponsor you, but I hope that this is to anyone listening that like that they can maybe partner up with you. And if people want to connect with you, how can they reach out?
You can reach out in social medias, Instagram, mail. We have a YouTube running up quite soon, and I want to be more out there and showing what I'm doing and inspire people that want to be more active. Both people going into triathlon and wanting to try that, but also people just wanting to make a lifestyle change and be more active for their health.
Yeah, and you did mention the YouTube. That was gonna be my last question or encouragement to the listeners. But I want you to say a little bit about, because you had David with you for the Norseman, and you guys are working on something there, and soon people can see that on YouTube. What can people expect?
Yeah, I'm super grateful I had David Soldati with me on the Norseman weekend. He managed to capture the whole weekend and the race from another angle than I saw it. And Norseman is not a fully broadcasted race because of the places we race. It's not possible to have a live stream throughout the whole race. So I think that people can expect a proper behind the scenes race video and see a bit more about how Norseman is, the course, the stunning view, and just the whole race.
I can't wait to see the documentary. Kristian, thank you for guesting the Marathon podcast again, and good luck in Nice.
Thank you, Kristian.
I think it's hard for the most of us to even start to understand how big of a performance this is. Like competing for that long, doing 3 disciplines like that as what triathlon is. But in addition to that, adding this element that Norseman has. And I feel like it is one of those competitions where people will really admire you for just finishing. And I mean, imagine yourself if you were to do that much swimming and biking before you start a marathon. And in addition to that, you end your marathon on top of a mountain. It's, a different level of sports, in my opinion. Really, really, really impressive. And I'm so happy that Kristian finally got his victory there. And if you haven't already, head over to his Instagram to see those finishing pictures and videos, because you can really tell how much it meant to him to do this. And I'm obviously super, super impressed with Kristian and how he's combining all of this training with a full-time job. And it was funny that one of the questions for Kristian was, do you think it's possible to do well with a full-time job? And Kristian was like, yeah, I think it is. And so I really, really hope that someone listening to this or someone seeing Kristian performing or his result will be like, hey, we want to sponsor this guy, because I think that Norway and the sport of triathlon and Ironmans, they will definitely benefit from Kristian having a bit more time for training. But I also think that any sponsor and any brand that can be associated with Kristian would be very, very lucky and would benefit from that. So thank you for listening to this bonus episode of the Marathon Podcast. I am excited to have you here. And again, before you leave the pod, give it a review and share it with a friend. Thank you so much. And I'll talk to you in the next one. You listen to the Marathon Podcast, brought to you by Wall Studio.